Welcome, Fins faithful. Miami Dolphins, busy day, just cut Bradley Chubb and Tyreek Hill. And this feels bigger than a couple roster moves. This looks like the start of a full reset. So the real question now isn't what happened, it's who's safe. We have NFL Insider, one of the best in the business, from the 33rd team. You know him on X, on My Sports Update. Ari Meirov joined us to break down what's he hearing around the league and what could be coming next. Let's dive into it, Jason. This is perfect timing. We're gonna have a good one today.
Yeah, we got really lucky with this timing. Who would have thought all of this news would happen today, the day that we have Ari, really one of the best insiders out there. And I say, without further ado, let's bring him up and let's break down.
Let's not waste any more time.
What could be happening? Ari, thank you.
Hey guys, great to be on, and like you guys said, I mean, perfect timing. I think that intro will need some updates here soon, but
well, you know where to go, to My Sports Update to get them. Tremendous following, tremendous work you do. Like I said, I promise we didn't plan this. You didn't contact the Dolphins and say, "Hey, let's make some moves today." So, but thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's an honor to be on, and you guys do great work. I mean, I follow Jason for a while. I mean, George, Fins faithful, I've heard of it. I'm sure a lot of Dolphins fans follow you guys, so it's great to be on.
Oh, I'm honored that you heard me. All right, I hope good things. All right, let's just start at the top here. Let's not waste any time. Ari, Hill, Chubb out. Around the league, in your opinion, what is this viewed at here? Your thoughts on this? More of a reset, or is there something more strategic to this? I guess let's start with your thoughts on the news today. Not surprised, right?
No, not surprising. I mean, people like me and what we do, we create every offseason a spreadsheet of potential cut candidates and trade candidates and retirement guys, and like these guys were on there. I mean, these are the guys who are kind of common sense, big cap hits, no guaranteed money, new regime coming in, new scheme coming in, just makes all the sense in the world. And in Hill's case, obviously recovering from a very, very significant injury. So not much of a surprise that it happened, but the big picture is probably the bigger question here. And it's like, which direction is this organization going in with Jeff Hafley, with John Eric Sullivan? And I think it's pretty clear that when you bring in these two guys who obviously have their own beliefs and their own philosophies, is that they're going to try to build it from the ground up. And if you listen to the press conference they had, I mean, it was pretty clear that they're about, draft, develop, pay your own guys. And the draft is a very, very big part of what they want to do over here. And I think you look at this organization and the players they've had on this team, a lot of them are, outside guys signed from free agents, or in Hill's case and in Chubb's case, were both trades. Even like over the years, a lot of the guys who they did draft who were success stories were let go eventually as free agents. So I think this organization moving forward is going to try to bring in their own young guys in the draft, hit on those draft picks, just like Green Bay, which is where John Eric Sullivan came from, have done a lot of success in doing that. And from there, that's how you build your infrastructure. And those are the guys that are going to set the culture for what the future is supposed to look like 2-3 years from now. So, yeah, this might take some time for them to get back to where it was. I think probably the best example to give fans is probably in your own division back in 2017 when Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott were hired in Buffalo. They tore it down. I mean, they traded and cut a lot of beloved players in that building. I mean, you think of the Sammy Watkins of the players, and you think of a lot of different players that team had. They moved on from a lot of them, and they were like, hey, we're going to get them out of here. Marcel Darius, like you go through the entire list. They had a lot of veteran players like, no, we're going to move on. Guys that the previous regime paid, move on from those guys, get more draft picks, and then build it out from there. And that's when Josh Allen came aboard, and Deion Dawkins came aboard, and Matt Milano came aboard, and all these guys, of course, are still there now here in 2026. So that's kind of the model I think they're going to go over here and try to do what Buffalo did back almost a decade ago.
That's a great comparison. I got a quick. Chubb was a 31.2 cap number. You reported that they'll save about 7.3 in the cap, and then with Tyreek, were they about 11-12 over the cap? Do you know currently? I didn't check on that before we got here. Is that sound about right?
So when they announced the moves here about an hour ago, they did not include Chubb in the initial post. So it sounds like they're going to use the post June 1 designation with him, which means his 31, assuming that ends up being accurate, maybe they just announce it tomorrow, we'll see. But if they do the post June 1 designation, that means he cannot become a free agent until the new league year. That also means his 31 will stay on the salary cap until June 1st. Then they're going to get more salary cap relief then, and the dead money will be split over 2 years. Everyone else who was released today, James Daniels, Tyreek Hill, Nick Westbrook-Akine, all those guys are straight releases. Their salary cap space saved hits the books right away. The dead money hits right away. And those guys become free agents right now and can sign immediately. So those are the differences here. But those moves all being done, they're very close to being cap compliant already.
Yeah, they got 2 of those, right? You can do 2. So this is the other one. We'll talk about that player.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so overall in the media circles, Ari, and from what you're hearing, what has been the perception of the Dolphins regime? I mean, they're wasting no time cleaning house here, as you kind of referenced.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fresh start, and I'll say this much: a lot of people are big fans of Jeff Hafley. I think he was right up when it comes to the new coaches who were hired this year, excluding the John Harbaughs, the Kevin Stefanskis, who are more in the retreads. Jeff Hafley was one of the most impressive ones out there. I mean, the Raiders before Raiders wanted to interview him again. They were down there in Miami for the national championship game. They were like, "Hey, come here. We're like a few miles away. Let's interview." He's like, "No, I'm taking this Dolphin." Like a lot of guys were very into Jeff Hafley, and John Eric Sullivan has been, you don't hear much about him. He's not somebody who's doing many press conferences when he was down there in Green Bay. You don't hear as much of him as maybe you heard in Ian Cunningham or some other people, but very well respected. And really, when you look at that Green Bay front office from over the years, dating back to the late, great Ted Thompson. But you go to Brian Gutekunst, you go to Elliot Wolf, you go to John Schneider, and of course, you have John Eric Sullivan. Like that's a very, very good front office that has had the same people for many, many years who just know how to do it. They know how to build a team. They know how to do it the right way. So they're very well respected, and they're going into a situation where Green Bay was never in this position when it comes to a roster, where there's so many aging players and big time salary cap. Like they never had this type of a situation. So it's a new world in that perspective for John Eric. And that's why he's trying to remodel this organization from a salary cap standpoint right now, where they're able to, get this back to where the rest of the league is and probably really have a lot of room come in 2027. So from an overall league perspective, and we're all going to be in Indianapolis here next week where everyone gathers for the NFL Combine. Like these two guys are very well respected. How they're going to end up doing all of this, obviously only time will tell. But in terms of who they are and their capabilities, I mean, it was about time they got a job.
Yeah, I want to bring up this is a good point. I kind of had this our friend Lo-Fi here. Is this going to be Packers 2.0? Do you think these guys have their own ideas that are not necessarily Packers? That's a great point. Everybody talks about the Packers, but you get your own shot, right, Ari? They could do things a little bit differently, not much, but is that what you're expecting? This is straight Packers 2.0, or they'll have a little of their own sauce on it?
Yeah, I mean, every executive and assistant coach dreams of becoming a GM and head coach eventually in the NFL. The idea that you're going to go there and just do exactly what the other place did is probably not what you were thinking. So yeah, they learned a lot of different things during their time in Green Bay. You heard John Eric Sullivan say like, "Hey, here in Green Bay, we drafted quarterbacks every other year. We believe it's the most important position in all of sports. We're going to bring someone into the building all the time." Yeah, they could definitely do that. But you look at, for example, John Schneider in Seattle, who came from Green Bay. I think he's drafted a total of 3 quarterbacks in like 17 years there. So every situation is different when it comes to all this stuff. But do I think he'll bring some of Green Bay's philosophies over to Miami? Yeah, but I don't think it'll be exactly all similar. Everyone has their own ideas. Everyone has their own thoughts about how they would do it once they get into the big chair. And now we're going to see what their thoughts exactly are. So I don't anticipate it being the same. A couple of big differences that I expect right away. Maybe not this year, but next year you'll see whenever they do some extensions, and maybe they'll do it with Devon Achane this year. We'll see. Green Bay was steadfast. We're only guaranteeing the first year of a contract. I don't think they're going to do that here in Miami. I think they'll be okay guaranteeing a second year in a contract. So we're going to see different philosophies coming up over here now that they're in a different location, different city, and also have an owner for the first time. In Green Bay, of course, there is no owner. And over here, you have Stephen Ross and you have Danny Silverman and all those other people there that are Tom Garfinkel and all those different people there that are key voices.
Yeah, Charlotte, I just want to mention the chat. They're loving you, Ari. Of course, we're here with Ari Meirov from 3013, one of the best NFL insiders. You know him on X with My Sports Update. Talking the Dolphins, the latest breaking news. Start of the purge, I guess. Tyreek Hill out, Bradley Chubb out, James Daniels, NWI, a bunch of guys, and we're getting his thoughts. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, hit that little bell, help us subscribe so we can build the channel, have more great guests like Ari All right, Ari, you mentioned quarterback. Big question, right? Is Tua Tagovailoa. He's got a lot of money on the dead books. We mentioned the 2 post-June 1 designations. There was a report today that their preference is obviously to trade him. I think that's obvious. I know they want to move him. What do you expect here? How soon do you expect that? And is that the direction you think that's going to go?
I mean, there's a trigger date there in mid-March when more money becomes guaranteed. So that's probably the deadline over here when it comes to Tua and figuring out where exactly is going to be next year, whether it's a trade, whether it's a release. If the slimmest of chances he ends up staying, which I would be very surprised by, but that's kind of the deadline over here that this front office is kind of working with. And you guys have seen it. John Eric has been asked about him. Jeff Hafley has been asked about it. They've never committed to him. It's pretty clear they're going to move into a different direction with a quarterback unless something very out of left field happens here. For them, it's better, obviously, to trade him. $99 million in dead money is the most ever in NFL history if you ever get to that point. Not a fun place to be in. That obviously, it makes life difficult as an NFL organization if you have that much money. Even if it's split over 2 years, that's a lot. So their preference is to work a trade over here. And Tua hired a new agent over here about a year ago. The agent who did his extension, he moved on from him. He went back to the same agent he had when he entered the NFL draft. So that person is back over here. So if you want to do a trade, the easiest path to doing a trade is Miami eats some of the money. And if Tua has a desired place to go, then maybe he takes a little bit of a pay cut to go to that location. And now the team who's acquiring him, instead of paying him $30-40 million, is paying him $20 million, $18 million, or whatever it is. That's more of a viable situation where it makes some sense. Now, for all these other teams who might be interested in him, they might look around and be like, why trade for him if he might just get cut? So that's the problem over here. And everybody knows that trigger date in mid-March, which is the real deadline over here. So that's going to be a little bit of the difficulty over here because everyone around the NFL is fully aware that this guy is not going to be here for long. So your hope is you're able to get a competition going, 2 teams badly want Tua, and all of a sudden, no, we can't let him get released because if he gets released, he might choose the other team. That's your best case scenario. Now, 3 of us talking here, do we think there's going to be a competition for Tua? I don't think so. So as a result, that's why I do think this ends up in a situation where he's cut post-June 1, and that significant $99 million in dead money is going to be spread over 2 years. It's similar to what Denver did with Russell Wilson. They took on $85 million in dead money. It was split over 2 years, and people thought it would have been insane back then. They actually got better during those 2 years, made the playoffs both years, and now that money is officially gone, and Denver is going to be spending a lot of money here this offseason. So it's been done before. I'm not saying it's going to happen over here with Miami where they have success right away, but it's going to be a very difficult situation. They're going to try to trade him, like I said, but it's going to be very, very hard.
Yeah. Real quick, Jason knows I threw out the trade scenario. You mentioned that. We talked about the I have to get it in. I threw one out, eat most of the money, make it about a 1 year, make it about a $10 million left for Indianapolis. It's a dome team, Ari. They have a warm weather division. We'll take back Richardson. We'll get that money off you. We'll give you back Tua and eat most of the money, and we'll throw you a day 3 pick. Now, that was my scenario. Is that any possibility you see? Is that a good idea at least?
I don't see why Indianapolis would want him. So there's probably a better scenario of just trading for Anthony Richardson without Tua involved. That might make more sense. Yeah. But I don't see Indianapolis taking him on because they have Daniel Jones, and it sounds like their preference is to move forward with him.
Yeah. Jason?
So let's stick with the quarterback position. Free agent Malik Willis is probably going to get a really good deal. Is there a very good chance that it is in Miami? Is there any financial realism if Miami can make him an offer?
Well, the one thing that all of us have heard over and over is the fact that, and I've said it here, both guys who were hired come from Green Bay. Nobody knows Malik Willis better than those Green Bay guys. So yeah, it definitely makes some sense. At the same time, the one thing that I'm realizing here, and again, going back to that spreadsheet that I make every single year, there are more teams who need quarterbacks than there are going to be quarterbacks available. That's the situation right now that we're going into this offseason. So because of that, Malik Willis, who I think there's going to be a number of teams who will be interested in him, I think he's going to get more than what Justin Fields got in the open market last year, which was 2 years and $40 million. That's a situation where now I think there's going to be a few teams that might be interested in him. I look at Miami, makes a lot of sense. I would not sleep on the Arizona Cardinals, who are trying to move on from Kyler Murray. And guess what? Their new head coach is Mike LaFleur, who is Malik Willis' coach in Green Bay. Matt LaFleur. So there's a brother connection there. They obviously run the same scheme. That would make some sense. So I do think Malik Willis is going to have some competition out there, but it's pretty rare to have a quarterback in his mid-20s who has had success in the NFL the way he has had, who runs a system that many teams around the NFL are running right now, the Shanahan system, which is exactly what Bobby Slowick is going to run in Miami, which is what Mike LaFleur is going to run down there in Arizona. It just makes a lot of sense for him to have competition out there. So he's going to be pretty covered out there. And unlike all these other quarterbacks we're talking about, the Tuas and the Kyler Murrays you might want to trade for, there is no draft picks attached to this one. There is no you sign him as a free agent, he's yours. So I do think there's going to be a number of teams out there who are interested in him. I can't tell you right now for sure who those teams are. I think the two teams I mentioned make sense, but I think I'll probably have a better understanding of what that's going to be if you talk to me next week after we're done with the NFL Common in Indianapolis, where everyone talks and everyone chats and all the business goes down.
Yeah, I heard those bars late at night here.
Yeah.
You find a lot of good info there. Are you going to be locked? We're going to have to get you back on. We had Dave Hyde, who writes for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. He spoke with Mike Tannenbaum. He said he thinks Malik can get 25 to 30 million per. You think that's realistic? I mean, I thought more of the 13, 15 or the Justin Fields. What are we closer to? Do you think the 25, 30 is because you combine this with a bad quarterback class, right, in the draft? So there's not a lot of options out there.
It's a bad quarterback class, and it's not a deep quarterback free agent class like it never is. But the guys you're looking at as alternatives are, the veterans out there, the guys who maybe not everybody is a fan of, Tua, or not a big fan of Kyler, or not a big fan of Kirk Cousins. Like, that's kind of what you're dealing with there. So do you want to get the guy who's still young, still has development there, has shown some signs? It makes sense. The numbers I'm working with right now in my projections is that the Justin Fields contract, which was 2 years and $40 million last year, you add in the fact the salary cap is going to go up to about $305 million. So you're looking at about $22, $23 million. But if it gets a situation where it's like, hey, there's three teams going after him, now you have competition. Now you think of what happened to like a Milton Williams last year in free agency, where it was Patriots, Panthers, Cardinals, and all of a sudden he's getting $28 million per year on the open market. So competition on the open market makes you get more money than anybody expected, and that could definitely happen over here with Malik Willis.
Yeah. All right. So it's funny you mentioned that. I look at this as a bigger picture of what they're doing. And you mentioned earlier about, hey, they want to add draft picks. I heard that too. We've heard that this regime wants to add draft picks. If you're another team right now, is there a for sale sign up with the Dolphins players? Are there guys that maybe we're not thinking about? I mean, I know we talk about the A-Chains, the Waddles, but is this a team right now that's open for business for draft capital if you give them the right move? Should we be looking for that?
It's a question that I don't know the answer to right now because it's so early in the offseason, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what this regime is about and exactly what their thought process is and what their philosophies are and really how far they want to tear this down, right? I'm not sure of that right now. What I do know is that the previous regime, and after Chris Greer was fired, they essentially had a for sale sign on a bunch of their players. I mean, Devon Achane was available for a very high price, and some teams were interested. Eventually, no deal got done. Jalen Waddle, I thought, had a really good chance of getting traded, whether it was Denver or Buffalo. Like, he was out there. I mean, and again, no deal got done, but they had talks about it. And again, that was the previous regime. A lot of those guys are not there anymore. John Eric Sullivan's going to bring in his own guys over here to the front office. So I don't know what his plans are, but it definitely was something that they were open to entertaining at the trade deadline last year. I do think it's a bit apples and oranges, again, because it's different people here. But again, it's more of a question, how far do they want to tear this down? If you're going to pursue Malik Willis in free agency, George, I don't see why it would make sense to move on from your star playmakers. Then you want Malik to have him. But if they're not going to go aggressive over here and try to sign a free agent quarterback, and they're like, hey, we're going to sign a bridge guy for 1 year and $5 million, or we're going to draft a guy in the third round and let him play, maybe that's a scenario where it's like, you know what, we're truly going all the way down over here this year. We're going to get as much draft capital as possible and try to build our way up over here in the future. Going back to the Buffalo example that I used in the beginning here, if you go back to that offseason they had, the amount of players that they moved on from to get future draft capital the next draft, it was a bunch of players who a lot of that fan base were really really excited about. And their entire idea, Brandon Beane's idea was, hey, I'm going to get a lot of draft picks for the 2017 draft with the idea that I have enough ammunition to trade up for a quarterback in that draft, which we've heard a lot about it now. It was Baker Mayfield, it was Sam Darnold, it was Josh Allen, it was Josh Rosen, and it was Lamar Jackson. He knew there were going to be that many quarterbacks, and he needed enough ammunition to make sure he got one of those guys. That was his idea, and of course, it all worked out. If you look right now at the 2027 draft, it sounds like that's going to be a pretty deep quarterback class. So if they decide to go in that direction, it's like, you know what? Let's put a for sale sign. Let's get as many picks as we could get right now for 2027 and end up getting one of those guys with all these draft picks. I could see that being a scenario. But again, going back to your original question, I don't have an answer right now, but I do think we're going to get an answer pretty sooner than later because the offseason will be here. Business will be moving really, really quick. And as soon as one trade happens, the rest of it starts falling into place pretty quick. So we're going to get an answer pretty fast over the next month.
Very interesting on the HN scenario. You know, if you look around Dolphins Twitter, it's not a split 50-50. A lot of people would say, hey, listen, trade him now, get capital. You know what? He's the MVP of the offense, got to extend him. Do you think there is a solid or a decent chance the Dolphins, this new regime, can extend him because of his importance just for any offense? Dual threat running back, really runs a lot tougher than his size. Or do you think, hey, listen, if they send back a really good package of draft picks, might as well just ship him out?
I mean, from everything I've heard, HN wants to stay in Miami. He loves Miami. He loves everything about it. I'm sure he loved playing for Mike McDaniel, who was probably a dream for a running back like him. And we'll see what this new offensive staff, and I know Slowick was there already, but what they're able to do with him over here moving forward. But from everything I've heard, dating back to that trade deadline this past year, when they heard that, hey, there's a scenario we might, shop you or whatever, I don't think HN was exactly excited about that. Like, I think he really wants to stay in Miami. But again, this all goes back to the running back conversation about how much do you pay a running back and how much are you supposed to do that whenever your team is not exactly in a position to win. Like, I mean, this was what the Giants went through when they decided not to pay Saquon Barkley. They're like, hey, we're not ready to win right now. We don't think it makes sense to pay a running back $14 million per year when our team is not ready to win. I think that is going to be a conversation that will be had in that front office. But at the end of the day, like a player like HN, who is beloved by the fan base, who is an incredible player, in my opinion, one of the top 7 running backs in football right now, that's somebody you probably want to keep with whoever the quarterback is going to be next year to make that guy's life easier. So it makes sense to me to keep him. But again, going back to what I said before, I don't have a clear-cut idea of what the plans for this front office is and how far they want to tear this down.
Yeah, I'm still going back to your how close were they close at all talking with teams with HN? Because I know Waddle was more, Jason. I think we know Waddle was more available. But honestly, I was catching back when you said HN they were talking, but you think they got anywhere close? And you know what the asking price was, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean they were looking for a high day 2 pick with a player, so that's what they were looking for. And I don't think they really got close to getting that over here. But I do know for a fact there were a couple of teams who made the playoffs who had a lot of interest, not surprisingly. But like I said before, I don't think HN was particularly excited about the idea of getting traded and moving, whether it's, right now he's on the East Coast moving potentially. Like, I don't think he wanted to do any of that. I think he really loves Miami and he wants to stay there, but it didn't end up happening. Again, we'll see what this new regime decides to do.
So he got wind of it, I think. He got wind of it.
Well, I'll tell you, if this new regime could, maybe extend him or put something in front of him before the season starts, to know that, Ari, that he wants to stay, that could really be music to many Dolphin fans' ears. So, sticking in or moving, so to speak, to free agency, obviously they're not going to be massive spenders, but do you think there could be 1 or 2 names outside of Malik Willis, maybe other Packers, Romeo Doubs, Quay Walker? Do you think the Dolphins could be, quote, buyers in free agency or really be kind of frugal?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say again what I said before in terms of I don't know exactly how aggressive they're going to be when it comes to all this stuff. I just think, logically speaking, if you're going to tear it down like this, I don't think this is the year to go out there and start saying, hey, let's go sign Quay Walker for 3 years and 50 or whatever it is. I think this is the year where it's like, let me bring in the guys for 1-year contracts, 1 year, $4 million, 2 years, $6 million, those type of players who are the culture guys. And I'll give you another good example. When Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes were hired back in Detroit, That team was awful. They traded away Matthew Stafford, which is the big trade to get a lot of draft picks for them. But their free agency in year one was all about signing culture guys. And they were like, we're going to sign Jamal Williams, who was a great culture guy. We're going to sign Michael Brockers, who's a good culture guy. And these guys were like cheap contracts, but they were high energy guys, the type of guys they want to have their program to be. And that's the guys they brought in. And it obviously worked out great. And Jamal had a familiarity with Dan, and Michael Brockers had a familiarity with Brad Holmes. I think you are looking for guys who you have familiarity with. And Jeff Hafley has been around many different players over the years. I mean, prior to Boston College, he was around the NFL. He knows a lot of different coaches around the NFL who have coached all these different players who are about to become free agents or be cut candidates. So I think that's probably the market that makes sense for them, whereas that second wave, third wave, finding guys of those stature who it's more about like, hey, we're trying to build an identity here. We're trying to show our young guys, hey, this is what we want a player to look like. And that's the way we want to move forward. So I think that's probably what makes the most sense. I don't think it would make sense for them to be out there at other positions and signing these guys to big money contracts. I don't think that's the philosophy that makes sense with the moves we've seen so far. Like, I've always been an action speaks over words type of a guy. And so far, the action that they've done so far is like, hey, we're tearing this down and we're going to try to build this our way. So that's the way I think they're going to go based on how they've been operating so far.
So Dolphin fans shouldn't be waiting around that March kickoff to free agency. Kind of just sit back a little bit until the next wave.
Yeah, I know you guys have had a lot of history of that over the years, so I'm seeing the big splashes right away. But I would be very surprised, aside from Malik Willis, who's obviously a quarterback, I would be very surprised if they were out here spending big-time money on players.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a good sign if they did that anyways. I think maybe Malik, like you said. I want to talk about the quarterback, but we talked about free agency. Besides Malik, any other quarterbacks here maybe could be connected to the Dolphins, like Davis Mills, for example? What quarterbacks are actually available on the move this offseason? We know Kyler, Geno Smith. Like, they have different Kirk Cousins, but like, wasn't Mills with our offensive coordinator? Any other connections you could see the Dolphins going if they're going to go bridge route to compete, with Quinn?
Yeah, I would be stunned if the Texans move on from Davis Mills. I mean, we saw him play this year. When CJ Stroud had a concussion, he was 3-0. You can make an argument he was playing better than CJ Stroud at that point in the year. They love him. They extended him last year. I don't think he'll become available. Really, when you look at the quarterback market, there's really not many names out there that stick out in terms of like, hey, this is somebody we could bring in and be the bridge guy. If you're signing one of these guys, it's more of the veterans out there. I mean, you're looking around right now, it's, Russell Wilson and Marcus Mariota and Tyrod Taylor and Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett and Jimmy Garoppolo and Mitchell Trubisky. Like, those are the guys we're working with. If you're looking at the trade market, I think there's a couple of interesting ones. You mentioned Anthony Richardson before. I think that's an interesting project out there that could become available. I don't think San Francisco is looking to move on from Mac Jones. I do think they're going to ask for a lot if they were to move him, but that's one where people in the league circles are like, hey, he's on a cheap contract, 1 year left, was amazing as a starter this year when Brock Purdy was hurt. That's another one. But that's kind of what you're looking at over here when it comes to the current quarterback market. And then obviously you have the draft where after Mendoza, I mean, it's very interesting to say the least. I mean, Ty Simpson could maybe be a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick. And then everybody else, I mean, it's different flavors, and it's not exactly the greatest quarterback draft class ever. So it's not exactly a fun time to be looking for quarterbacks out there, especially if you're trying to find the guy to be your bridge guy. I mean, there are not many great options out there as of right now.
Yeah. Speaking of the draft and the quarterbacks, we do a lot of draft stuff on here, and I did a video on Ty Simpson, and he's interesting. I think he could move up, because there's, with Chambliss going back to school. So it'll be interesting. But I want to stay on that draft topic. You mentioned the combine coming up here. What is the league's perspective of this draft class? Like, is it a weak draft, right? Again, you're getting to the combine, you'll get more information. But are there any guys that you've been hearing that, hey, let's not be surprised if this guy flies up and becomes a first-round pick, or this player is not going to go as high as we think, or is that more so when we get to the combine?
Yeah, I mean, the early chatter, I guess. Yeah. And again, I really start doing my draft stuff like now. This is when I really dive in on it. But from everything I've heard, this draft class compared to what next year will be is considered weak. So this year is weak. Next year is unbelievably strong, which is why even when you go back to the trade deadline, when the Jets made that trade with the Cowboys for Quinn and Williams, they're like, hey, we don't want the 26 one, we want the 27 one. That's how their advanced scouting was looking at the future prospects out there. So there are some good players here in this draft, but really it starts weakening out over here as you keep on moving forward. And again, there's always going to be the diamonds in the rough and all of that, but that 27 draft, when you look at, I mean, the quarterbacks with obviously potentially Arch and Dante Moore, and maybe the Ole Miss quarterback, who of course is now going back there for the 60, right? I mean, exactly. There's a lot of quarterbacks next year, but even like aside from that, I mean, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams potentially. There's a bunch of really good pass rushers. I mean, there are a lot of really big time players coming out next year compared to where it is this year. The biggest chatter that I've heard up until now when it comes to this year's draft is where is a guy like Caleb Downs going, where his talent is unbelievable, but at the same time is like, where are you drafting a safety? And in my opinion, if he's as good as advertised, then just take him. I mean, look at how great Kyle Hamilton is in Baltimore. People had that debate, what is it now, 5 years ago. He fell to 14, and now he's making $25 million per year. If he's as good as you guys think he is, then just take him. So that's a big debate right now in league circles. But overall, from a draft class perspective, whether it's strong versus weak, a lot of people are more excited about 27 than they are right now in 26.
Boy, Caleb Down, that's a name we saw Jason and I smiled, and we hope falls to 11 here. I mean, yeah. I watch a lot of film on a lot of guys, and I'll tell you, Ari, I can tell you, he's about as clean as a safety prospects I've seen in a long time. He's got like a little Ed Reed, a little Brian Dawkins in him. Like he's that kind of player.
I love the Ed Reed, Brian Dawkins mention. You know who's picking at number 5? New York Giants, John Harbaugh, DB's coach in Philadelphia with Brian Dawkins. In Baltimore, he had Ed Reed. In Baltimore, he had Kyle Hamilton. I'm just saying it makes some sense.
Yeah.
That's actually a great call for when a mock draft is going to be constructed very soon. But the Dolphins have 1 or 2 names on the board at 11. Run the ticket up kind of guys. Maui Goa, Spencer Fano, and of course Down. But I think they'll all be gone. But all right, we really appreciate you joining us. This is great stuff. On a league-wide scenario, we can move off the Dolphins for half a second. Is there a move, whether it's a signing, a trade, that would actually shock people? Do you have a fun little call or prediction of what might be a massively surprising move?
I'm trying to think for a second, and I'm opening this sheet that I have over here to see what would be.
There's always one.
There's definitely I'd probably have a better answer next after the combine. The team that I'm watching the most is the Jaguars, because they have this young GM, and we saw him last year doing the Travis Hunter trade, and they obviously need picks now because they don't have a first round pick this year. I just feel like that team and that organization and that GM, he likes to wheel and deal. And I'm looking at, they extended their left tackle during the season. They had a different left tackle who the previous regime extended. His name is Walker Little. I think he's available. I think the Brian Thomas Jr. thing is interesting. I mean, I don't know if he's exactly somebody who was fitting in early on in the year. As the year went on, it got better and better. But then they paid Jacoby Myers. They have Parker Washington, who is awesome. And then you have this Travis Hunter element coming back. I just wonder, that's probably the one surprise name, Brian Thomas Jr., who was awesome as a rookie, took a little bit of a step back this past year. I wonder if this new regime with James Gladstone, who loves doing trades, would consider moving him. So that's probably the one name that I have on my sheet right now where it's like, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, he just dropped off the face. He had a promising rookie year. Sticking league wide real quick, what's going on in Buffalo? I mean, that situation, can you shine some light out to Joe Brady, the whole situation there? And also give me a GM and a coach who's, this has got to be the year. I mean, I go to Indianapolis. That's where my head goes. But like, we'll start with Buffalo situation. I know it's a Dolphins podcast, but that situation to me, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I think it got a little bit overblown when the owner did his press conference. And anybody who knows Terry Pegula, and he does not do many media sessions at all, because when he does, and that PR department will tell you, he just talks, and then it just gets out of control. So I think that's kind of what happened, and everybody was like, this place is a laughing stock. I think Buffalo is going to be just fine. I think they're going to be they needed a fresh voice. They've had the same person since 2017, and they just weren't getting over the hump. Hiring somebody from that same coaching staff is an interesting way of going things, but they did hire a bunch of really, really smart people onto the coaching staff. I love Jim Leonard, their DC. So, I mean, whenever you have Josh Allen, I think you're always going to be in contention. So I'm not overly worried about them. I do think that is going to be a team, though, this year where they're going to be aggressive about trying to get over the hump, which is let's find a wide receiver one. I mean, I mentioned Brian Thomas Jr. now. I think he makes sense in Buffalo. So like that's something I think they're going to be a little bit aggressive at over here this offseason, of finding somebody to be that guy for Josh Allen, because the idea of having 5 different guys and sharing the ball and whatever, it was not working. They need to find that alpha guy the way they once had with Stephon Diggs, and they got to get younger on defense. So I do think they're going to try to do that over here this offseason, and they're going to have a bit of an aggressive offseason to try to get back to being on top of the AFC East after now winning it for the first time in 5 years this past year. As for the GM and head coach that I'm kind of watching here, I don't really know if there's the head coaches. I mean, there were 10 new ones this year, so there was so much turnover already. So it's like it's hard to always pinpoint one, but in your own division, I think there's a lot of noise right now with Aaron Glenn. Whenever you hire a coaching staff, when you're hired, and you fire like 80% of it a year later, not a great look. So that's one over here where people are like, hey, you better turn it around over here this upcoming year. He's changing a lot. He's going to be calling the defense this year. He did not do that last year. He hired Frank Reich as his offensive coordinator, and essentially he told Frank, like, you're the head coach of the offense. Like, I'm not even going to be there. Do your thing. Hire your people. I'm going to handle the defense the way I did in Detroit. You handle the offense, and we got to start turning this around. I think that team is very interesting. And then GM-wise, I mean, I put Chris Greer in the same bucket as Chris Ballard a couple years ago, where it's like, at what point is enough? And Ballard survived again. And really, they had an unbelievable start to this past year. I felt like they finally found their quarterback with Daniel Jones. And of course, everything fell off a cliff of the torn Achilles, and they went for the Sauce Gardner trade. There's definitely pressure there on Chris Ballard's plate to get them over the hump. I mean, they have not won the division ever since he got there, and I think it's already been 10 years. So for a division that is that weak, that does not have, a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson or a Joe Burrow, that's not good. So they're lucky they've had patient ownership. The late Jim Irsay was very patient with him. His daughter, Carly, obviously is very high on him as well. But at some point, the results have to come in, and they have not been coming in over the last decade. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But I think that's another team that has a lot of pressure on them over here this offseason.
Yeah, we'll get you out of here. I forgot something I want to close on. Tyreek Hill, his value around the league. Do you see a reunion with not with Kansas City, but would you see him more with maybe a Baltimore? Is there going to be a few teams out there with Tyreek, or is he going to have a tough time? He's still an alien. You know what I mean? There's not many like him, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw his agent Drew Rosenhaus said today that he wants to continue playing. So that's part one that we needed to find out over here. As for him, I mean, we mentioned all the trade targets before with Miami and the trade deadline. I was positive Tyreek was getting traded before the deadline if he does not get hurt. I was confident it was going to happen. And frankly, I was pretty confident it would be to Kansas City. I was positive the Miami would pay it down, KC would take him, and that would be like their big, energizer bunny to try to turn their season around. Of course, the injury happens and the rest of it is forgotten now. But I do think KC is one team to watch for sure. They love having reunions with their players and their coaches. We saw Eric Bieniemy just go back. I mean, Tyreek will tell you that Eric is one of his favorite coaches he's ever had. So it makes a lot of sense. But I'm sure there'll be other teams out there that will be sniffing around over here on Tyreek. But other teams out there, they don't know Tyreek. I mean, Tyreek is a very, he says a lot sometimes, probably more than he should sometimes. And he also has some stuff off the field that have come up. So I feel like KC just makes the most sense for him. I don't think it'll be that expensive coming off the injury as well. So that makes the most sense to me. Again, this is just a guess, but just common sense over here. That just makes a lot of sense.
All right. We appreciate it, guys. We appreciate everybody in the chat. And remember, if we get to 3,000 subs before the draft, we're giving away a free official Dolphins NFL draft cap. And Ari will come back on the show after the draft if we get there. So we appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys are hitting those thumbs up. Subscribe to help support the channel. We really appreciate it. Ari, before we go, let everybody know where they can find you. I'm sure they already do, and all the great work you're doing on 3013 and what you got cooking right now.
Yeah, I mean, the X handle, Twitter handle is @MySportsUpdate. All your NFL news and updates in one spot. That's where you get it from. As for my show, I have an NFL Spotlight show every single week. I have a guest from around the NFL who deserves more recognition. Could be a player, could be a coach, could be an executive. Every single Tuesday that comes out. Actually, tomorrow, my guest is Giants offensive tackle Jermaine Elaminor, who actually had a stint in Miami. Had an unbelievable year this past season. Is going to be a free agent over here this offseason. And we spoke about his career path, his journey. It's a really cool one. He was born in London. His first NFL anything was watching a game when he was 14 years old in London. It was Giants, Dolphins, and Wembley Stadium. And from then on, he wanted to become an NFL player. And he shared his entire story here on the show. That comes out tomorrow on the NFL Spotlight Show. It's on my X page on YouTube. So if people are interested in hearing people's stories, how they got to where they are, I mean, that's what we do every single week.
Yeah. Please, guys, go check them out. Go follow them on My Sports Update. All the great work. Nobody works harder and does it better, Ari. I see your rise as success. Much you put in the work, so deserve all the credit. And we appreciate you coming on, taking your time. I know you're a busy guy, so we appreciate it. We'll be back Wednesday talking quarterback options and stuff like that. So good stuff. So, guys, for Ari Sarney, for Jason Sarney, for myself, we're out, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks again, Ari. Everybody stay safe.
Thank you, Ari.
Take care.
Appreciate you.